When you start to pay attention around you in an urban environment, you'll start to feel like Sherlock Holmes, uncovering small, seemingly insignificant mysteries that you can then solve. And I want to show you a particularly satisfying one I stumbled across today. It's this yellow metal bar right here. It doesn't seem like official city infrastructure, but it blocks your pathway if you're walking down the street. I'm outside of Portillo's here in Chicago. The first assessment, which is true but only partially true, is that you'll see that it forces you to walk around it and pay more attention to this blind drive, the drive-through that's coming through here. But almost every block in Chicago has a blind drive like this. Why does this one have it? People naturally don't walk this close to the wall. So all it's trying to do is to get people to pay attention or walk this far away from the wall. Now you'll also notice there's a sign that says, hey, here's the drive-through with traffic. There's even a mirror to make it easier for cars to see the pedestrians that might be making a bad choice. But solutions that include signs and mirrors like this aren't enough, in part because the very people who are walking close to the wall are probably people who aren't paying attention. So that state of inattention is what puts them in danger and what makes this sign irrelevant. So you put this here. But again, why here? There must be a higher frequency of either drivers driving inattentively or people walking inattentively. And this is our next clue. Look at this trail of this dark stain right here. This is likely an employee entrance. An employee with a leaky bag of trash is going to make a beeline to the dumpster, which includes walking along this wall. This increased frequency of a person making a blind choice, coupled with the drive-through increasing the traffic in this alley, is what makes this corner particularly dangerous. Remember earlier when I said it makes you feel like Sherlock Holmes solving insignificant mysteries? Well, this one actually points to a larger truth. And that is, when the stakes are high, we can't rely on signs, we have to rely on design. And here's why. Nobel Prize-winning psychologists Kahneman and Tversky point out that we spend most of our day on a sort of autopilot, our brain functioning in a system they call System 1. But whenever we're awakened by something that's unfamiliar or out of the ordinary, we shift into System 2, which is more rational and problem solving. System 1 is necessary for us to get through our day. It is pivotal to our survival. But in modern context, it often puts us in danger. And in this case, this employee is in System 1 doing something they do every day, which is taking out the trash, increasing their speed in which they take out the trash since the bag is leaking. And you need something that bumps them into System 2. And that's what this is. You're breaking someone out of their instincts and forcing them into their rational mind, which decreases the danger. This is why you hear adages like, too many signs shows a lack of design, or paint is not infrastructure. This painted bike lane is not keeping the city employee from parking in it. And a lot of times, this probably wasn't even a rational choice. This restaurant could have said, this is no longer a driveway, but instead, they have 3 physical objects enforcing that. And just a block away from that last bike lane is this, a fully protected bike lane, which is obviously absorbed some trauma from cars. Again, if that city employee tried to park here, that curb would have jolted them awake and say, not right here. It wakes you up from instinctual action to rational action. It bumps you from System 1 to System 2. Now, we get this when we're designing infrastructure for cars. Never see a bridge like this going over a river or a chasm without guardrails and just a sign that says, beware of the edge. Good design recognizes vulnerabilities and minimizes the behavior that exploit those vulnerabilities. Intersections are incredibly dangerous for everyone involved, drivers, cyclists, pedestrians, and you can design these intersections for maximizing throughput of cars or safety of all parties involved, but you can't do both. In a city where there's a certain level of density and a higher population, the need for getting somewhere quickly by car is decreased and safety should be increased. Pedestrian crossings should be more than just signs, hoping that everyone's paying attention. It can include more passive design that enforces slower behavior. Good design doesn't force good actions, but it does encourage it. Just like good design doesn't preclude bad actions, but it does discourage it. So in cities, we should be focusing on design more than signs that tell us to pay attention. Both because the stakes are higher, but also because as humans, we spend most of our time in System 1, which doesn't require us to pay attention at all times.